Welcome to Milan Recording Studios. My name is James Pavel Shawcross, and in today's video I have a really cool comparison between the Kawai MP11SE and the Yamaha CP88. Now what makes this kind of cool to me is that both of these companies are the big Japanese piano companies. Kawai, of course, is very famous for making high quality pianos in Japan, and so is Yamaha. So it's going to be very interesting how their flagship stage pianos compare, the MP11SE versus the brand new CP88, which actually recently came out at the beginning of 2019. I remember seeing it at the 2019 NAMM show and playing it and thinking it was really cool. And now, what do you know? I happen to have one in the studio. So I really hope that you guys enjoy this video. If you do enjoy the video, you might want to go ahead and give it a like and maybe think about subscribing. Go check out my channel. I've got lots of other cool keyboard videos if that's your thing. And if you're more interested in acoustic instruments, I also have lots of videos of pianos, as well as other electronic instruments like organs and other such things. So if you enjoy all that, make sure to go ahead and check out my channel after you're done watching this video, if you enjoyed the video. And before I get into the review, I did want to briefly mention one other thing, and that thing would be a shout out to Benjamin Kim of Kim's Pianos in Stanton, California, for loaning me this MP11SE free of charge for this video reviews. Thank you so much. So on with the review. The MP11SE versus the CP88. I thought I would do this video because, like I said, it would be kind of interesting to see what the two big name brand Japanese pianos, what their approach is to making a stage piano. And I think that we'll find that they have a rather different approach. Kawai went with a very warm, mellow, piano-like experience, and Yamaha went with a more bright, brilliant, keyboard-esque experience. And I believe that the CP88 would be a little bit more fitting for being used on stage, and I'll explain why. But first I'm going to play both of them. I'm going to play a number of different things, but first what I wanted to do is play a couple of pieces, first on one and then on the other. So I'm going to start off by playing my original test piece that I wrote to try out pianos and keyboards. Then after that I'm going to play an Eric Satie piece, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing those piano pieces on the MP11SE and the CP88. And I really hope that you guys were able to hear a difference between these two keyboards. If you're listening through like phone speakers or laptop speakers, you probably won't really be able to. But if you have a good set of headphones or a good set of speakers, you might be able to hear some differences. So what I'm hearing with the MP11SE versus the CP88 is that the MP11SE has a soft, warm, full sound throughout most of the range of the keyboard, whereas the CP88 has a thinner, brighter kind of a sound throughout pretty much all of the keyboard. The MP11SE is a bit bright up here in the treble, as virtually every piano tends to be, but throughout the rest of the piano it is very warm and mellow. Have a listen to a little bit of Debussy. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hopefully you guys could hear a difference there. The Kawai MP11SE is very warm and mellow in this kind of range. Especially in the bass, and the CP88 is a little bit brighter. As well as a little bit thinner sounding. Now, what could be the reason for this? Well, the reason I think is because if you have, say, a real piano or something that's rather mellow, and you're using it out on stage where both of these keyboards would be likely to be used, a lot of the sonic characteristics of that piano would probably get lost, and it might even have a hard time punching through the mix, especially if there's a lot of other instruments going on. Because a lot of the times when you have a piano in a band, depending on the type of music, there could be a drummer, there could be multiple guitarists, sometimes like a lead guitar, rhythm guitar, etc. There could be a bassist, there could be a vocalist, or sometimes more vocalists, and any other instruments that you wanted to use in that particular genre. So if there's a piano thrown in there as well, sometimes it could get lost, and in a mellower sound like that, the theory is that that sound would get lost and be hard to hear if the pianist wanted to be heard. So many stage companies, and many stage pianos and companies that make stage pianos want to have a brighter sound in their instruments as opposed to a more realistic sound in their instruments, so that the sound can punch through the mix and be heard when it needs to be. But of course that does lead to having a very bright piano sound. A few other differences between these two keyboards, one of them that's a little bit quirky and unusual, is that they start off, when you first turn on the instruments, they start off by having radically different amounts of reverb, and that's a very odd little detail. I don't even know why I'm bothering to tell you guys, but I thought it was kind of funny. The reverb over here on the CP88, I didn't increase this, but this is how much that they default to when you first turn it on. You can hear a lot of it there. However, on the MP11, there's almost none. So it's very interesting that Yamaha decided to put more reverb in their piano from the beginning, and I didn't alter that, but I did turn it off, and I'm going to turn it off now when I played those sounds, just to keep it even as possible, because the reverb might alter the sounds and make the sound a little bit different than this. One other thing I wanted to mention about these two keyboards is that the MP11SE uses Kawai's Grand Feel Action, which is an excellent feeling action. This, I believe, is Yamaha's own design. Their own design actions in their acoustic pianos are absolutely phenomenal, but this one here is a little bit stiff feeling, and especially when it comes to playing classical music, I feel like I don't have quite the control that I do on the MP11SE. I feel like if I'm trying to play very, very quietly, sometimes notes don't quite come at quite the right times when I want them to, because when I gently push a note down, it doesn't want to go down, then all of a sudden it's just like, Okay, I'm going down. So it's a very strange situation, whereas here, when you gently push a note, it will more gently fall to the bottom of the key bed like on a real piano. Does this have let off? No, it does not. That's another thing that this doesn't have. This has let off, which means as you gently push the key down, you'll feel the little bump like that before it goes to the key bed. This does not have any of that, which could be taking away a little bit of the realism from the piano playing experience. However, just because this action is a little bit stiff doesn't necessarily mean that that's bad, because if you're not focused on playing really precise classical music and you instead wanted to do jazz or rock piano where you just play chords and play really loudly, it would work perfectly fine. It would be absolutely amazing for that. And the action is very responsive, and if I want it to, I can make it play fast and quickly, but it's just not quite as responsive and quite as real and smooth feeling as the action on the MP11. What else do I want to talk about? Well, I think I should mention the build quality of both of these instruments. Both of them have metal construction. The metal on the top of the CP88, as I said, is metal. I believe this is metal here too, I think. It kind of sounds like metal, and it kind of feels like metal. So I think this front plate here is metal as well, and the underside could be metal as well. It's hard to say. I think it feels like metal. On the MP11SE, the top of it is definitely metal. Sounds like metal. The front of it is metal. The underside of it is plastic, and the sides here are actually wood. Now, both of them actually do have a pretty high build quality, but the MP11SE is a little bit higher because Kawai focused more on making it very durable, whereas Yamaha focused on making it as light as possible. This weighs in at around 40-something pounds, and this weighs in at around 70-something pounds. So if you wanted to haul one of these keyboards around, I'm sure you guys could probably make an obvious decision which one would be easier to haul around. It would be this one. However, if you're looking for an instrument that would be a really great practice instrument, something you could practice on reliably and get better at playing a real acoustic piano on, well, I think this would be your better option. Now, of course, both of these pianos have sounds other than acoustic pianos. They both have Rhodes sounds, string sounds, and a number of other things. So I figured I'd go on to that and talk about that a little bit as well. But before I go, I did want to mention that both of them do have damper resonance or sympathetic resonance. On some keyboards it's called string resonance, and on some keyboards it's called damper resonance. In here they call it string resonance, but it also has a damper resonance section that does who knows what. There's a little damper resonance dial that you can turn, which I don't really know what it does. String resonance is what I'm referring to here, but Yamaha calls it damper resonance. Basically, it's when you play notes on a real acoustic piano with the pedal held down, if you play some notes, especially in the treble, you can hear other strings sympathetically resonating along with it. It's a little bit more subtle on the Kawai MP11. If I went into the settings and cranked that up, you would be able to hear that. It's also on the CP88. A little bit more prominent, but it sounds good in both. On the CP88, you can toggle that on and off with this button here. On the MP11SE, you have to do a bit of menu diving to get to it. You have to hit the edit, you have to scroll all the way down to virtual tech, which mine's already on. You hit yes, and then you can find the string resonance. It's right at the top of the menu. So there is a little bit more menu diving involved in the MP11SE. Yamaha specifically designed this keyboard to have as little menu diving as possible and as much physical button control as possible, which was really, really great. The user interface on both of these keyboards overall is actually really, really easy to use. As I said, this one has a little bit more menu diving than this one, but other than that, they both operate in basically the same ways. You have 3 zones of sounds that you can toggle on and off. Up here, it's this really cool, like, little metal toggle switch, almost like you'd find in an airplane or something, and down here, it's just a simple button that you can toggle back and forth, but it's the same basic layout, so if you know how to use an MP11, you'll know how to use this, and vice versa. The CP88 is really, really easy to use. That's one of the greatest things about it. You can sit down, having never used one before, and immediately know how to use it. It's really amazing. So let's move on to the Rhodes sounds, shall we? I'm going to play a little excerpt of Riders on the Storm by The Doors on both of these keyboards, and I really hope that you guys enjoy hearing that. It'll be interesting to see how that compares. So that was a little taste of the Rhodes sounds on both of these keyboards. What I'm finding is that on the CP88, the sound is really focused towards the treble side of the instrument. So if you thought that the bass was a little bit quieter on the CP88 side of things, then that wasn't just you, because it actually is. And that actually might have clipped the recorder there, because this one is very well balanced from the bass to the treble. There isn't necessarily one particular region that really stands out. I think when you get into the really high treble, it does kind of get kind of piercing like it did on the original Rhodes. But on this, I feel like this region of the treble is really, really bright, and then everything else just kind of fades into non-existence. For example, if I turn the volume up on this so that the bass down here is the bass on here is equivalent to down here, so that would probably be still up more. I think all the way up. That's about right. A little too loud now. Maybe right about there. Right about there. The treble will be really loud. See, now the treble's too loud. and I'm playing that with the exact same force on both keyboards. I'm not playing the CP88 harder. Now, you can probably fix that with the EQ over here, but I did want to play them just the way they appear when you select the default setting, just to give you guys as fair of a comparison as possible here. Let me see if I can bring that down here. We have a high frequency knob way up here. Not really. Little bit. It did help a small bit, but not a whole lot. So that is one thing I wanted to mention, that the CP88 Rhodes sound is really balanced towards this section of the instrument. It's very bright and very loud, right in about this range, and the rest of it is a lot quieter. This one here is a bit more well balanced. The very high treble, let's see what that sounds like. Yeah, here. Ooh, wow. Again, really, really powerful. Way too powerful, I think. See, this here gets really bright in the last octave or so, whereas this doesn't. Hear that E? There's a lot less presence than here. And I think that's probably about how it should be, because if you're playing low notes, you'd want that high treble to really come out. I think on the original Rhodes, the very high treble was also really powerful the last octave or so. I have a 73 key Rhodes, so mine ends right here at this E. That's the last note on mine, so I don't know what the last few notes are like on a real Rhodes. But on a 73 key, I do believe that the last few notes are very powerful. So that is a little bit of an interesting detail between these two. If you're interested in how keyboards such as these stack up against the vintage instruments that they attempt to replicate, I will be doing some videos in the future where I compare all of these keyboards that I have, all of the ones that I have from the top brand keyboards, stage pianos on the market. If you're interested in seeing how those stack up against vintage equipment like the Fender Rhodes or a Hammond B3 or a Wurlitzer 200, make sure to go ahead and subscribe and hit the notification bell, because I will be doing videos like that in the future. So if you think that sounds cool, like I said, you might want to think about subscribing. Speaking of vintage equipments, and speaking of the Hammond B3, the CP88 has a number of different organ sounds. As with keyboards in general, the organ sounds are louder than everything else on the keyboard, and the Rhodes sounds are louder than the piano sounds, kind of. So the Hammond B3 sounds here, it has them, and what's also nice is that it has a rotary speaker effect, which is actually pretty good. One thing I do want to mention, though, that's kind of odd, is that when you go to the organ sounds, it's actually not selected to the rotary speaker. So that would, I suppose, be like a Hammond coming through a tone cabinet. Instead, you have to turn on the effect and then select rotary. I've done that off camera, but you just have to hit the button once if it's not already, because it defaults to the chorus effect. Then you have the rotary effect. Which is not too terrible. But one thing I do want to mention is that the MP11SE has no organ sounds whatsoever. It does have a rotary speaker effect in the effects menu, but it does not have any tone wheel organs, any other types of drawbar organs like, you know, combo organs or farfisas or anything, and it doesn't have any types of pipe organ sounds or any other imaginable organ sounds. The MP11SE has none of that, whereas the CP88 has a few different tone wheel type organ sounds, a few different combo organ sounds, and a couple of pipe organ sounds as well. So that is one thing I wanted to mention, that the CP88 has some organ sounds, the MP11SE doesn't. The CP88, unfortunately, does not have any kind of drawbar control, at least none that I know of. I don't believe it does, and so therefore you can't actually customize the drawbars. You just have to live with the presets that they have selected, most of which are actually pretty decent. That was a little taste of the Hammond organ sounds there, and that is what they sound like on the CP88. There's a number of few other sounds that the CP88 and the MP11SE share in common, such as string pads, like these. That's a mellow pad. It does have a few string sounds. Well, here's one. which is running through the rotary speaker. Oops. And the MP11SE has them as well. And there's a few various pads and stuff like that. You might have heard that first one there that I accidentally selected. It's pretty nice. Especially when you layer it with the piano and turn the volume down a little bit. It's very easy to layer sounds on this instrument, and it's also very easy to layer them on here. As I said, they operate in basically the same way. This one has buttons, this one has the little switches, but if you just turn on two different sections, you will have two different sounds going at once. So they do operate in roughly the same way. We also have a few different chromatic percussion instruments on here, like marimbas and xylophone and stuff like that, and this also has a marimba sound as well. I wonder how they will compare. That's really quiet. And then down here, so that was just a little sample of the marimba versus marimba sounds on these instruments. This one here also has a few different sounds that the MP11SE doesn't have, like synth leads. So it's got those as well. Another difference is that the mod wheels and pitch bend over here are little sticks instead of wheels, which is an interesting little touch. But this has a few different sounds that the MP11SE doesn't have, like the leads, but it does have a few pads and things like that, as well as the organ sounds that, again, this does not have, which is rather unfortunate. But I think that's about it that I really wanted to talk about on the MP11SE versus the Yamaha CP88. They're both really, really great keyboards, and I enjoy playing on both of them. The MP11SE, I feel, is a very good instrument if you are looking for an instrument that's going to give you a very piano-like experience. Whether you want to have a piano but they're a bit too expensive, so you're turning to keyboards, or you have a piano and you want to keep time off of it by practicing on a keyboard. Whatever your situation is, the MP11SE is going to be a very good thing to practice on, because the action is about as close to a real piano as you're going to get in the stage piano market. The CP88 is also really good, but I think the CP88 is geared more towards someone who's going to be doing traveling. It's almost half as light as the MP11SE is, so that's another reason why this would be good to be kind of an instrument that would be grounded at home where you practice on it, whereas this would be for going out to wherever you're performing, and it would be a bit easier to move. This is around 70-ish pounds, and this is around 40-ish pounds. It also has a few different sounds that the MP11SE doesn't have, like the organ sounds and the synth leads, if that's your thing, and there's also a little bit less menu diving going on here than in the MP11SE. For example, if you wanted to apply an effect to one of the electric pianos, you turn on the electric piano category, and then you can turn on the effects and toggle through them with this button and modulate them with these two knobs. On the MP11SE, you hold down the effects button over here, and there's two of them like you have up here for the electric piano category, and then you can modulate them and select them with these knobs, but you do it through the menu. So there's a little bit less menu diving on the CP88 than on the MP11SE, which is kind of a bonus, but that has been a bit of a review of these two keyboards. Again, I like the action more on this than on this, but if you're playing something a little more casual than classical music, like rock or blues or jazz, this would really work fine, and those bright piano sounds would probably be excellent for something like jazz. So I really hope that you guys enjoyed this review of the MP11SE versus the Yamaha CP88. If you did, like I said at the beginning of this video, you might want to think about subscribing, because I'm going to have lots of cool videos about keyboards coming out in the future. I'm going to have lots of neat comparisons between keyboards, like you see here, modern keyboards versus modern keyboards, as well as comparisons against the vintage equipment that they're trying to replicate, like Hammond B3 and Fender Rhodes and instruments like that. So if any of that sounds interesting to you, you might want want to think about subscribing. And if you do, I will see you in the next video. But before I go, I wanted to end off the video by giving one last thank you to Benjamin Kim. This video couldn't have been done without him, so thank you very much. And thank you very much for subscribing if you did. And if you did, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.